been a hell of a day. Here we go.
Oh, we're good. Thanks for listening, though, on Zcast. We appreciate it. Feel free to talk to us. We're going to be kind of just going over some of the UFC news. Actually, a lot this week.
There's been a ton of news this week.
I sheepishly missed it live, the card yesterday. I was watching, I thought that it was on Fight Pass, and I went and watched straight out of Cumberland, got it from Best Buy, and then came back and watched it.
So you chose to purchase it?
I did. It's right here.
May I ask why you chose to purchase it? I don't remember the last time I purchased a DVD.
I didn't purchase a DVD. I purchased a Blu-ray.
Yeah, I knew you were going to do that. That's how well I know you.
And actually, you can bring it back and say, yes, you did.
Well, yes, and the digital HD version, which you will never probably use.
Well, they always come with that.
Well, yeah, I understand.
And they probably will, especially with everything going to 4K now. So they actually probably almost always will from here on out.
Yeah, because it'll be the best version of itself.
Well, and yeah. But so I did. I always buy movies.
That's weird to me. I've never been a movie purchasing guy.
I always buy them. Always. I love them.
I mean, I have no problem like streaming them or watching them, and paying for them. But the physical copy, I usually don't watch a movie more than once or twice.
I watch them a lot.
Yeah.
But I've also bought a ton of movies that I've never watched. So
yeah, that's a little odd. So back to the fight card last night. So you watched Straight Outta Compton instead. Which highlights did you watch today? Let's start there.
I pretty much watched the whole thing. Like I'm pretty savvy on it. I've been pretty much spending all morning watching different UFC clips or previous fights and things like that. Just a normal Sunday. All I can do.
Then let's start with the most exciting fight and then get into it where people are super interested in hearing what we have to say, like always. Johnny Hendricks versus Stephen Thompson. You did watch that entire fight. It only lasted.
Well, it was pretty much like you said, and I didn't see it panning out the same way as last week. Essentially trying to go for takedowns, not getting it, and then getting finished, He looked good. He looked Conor loose. And it seems like we're finding like that new, because we've always talked about you're going to see the new fighters that they can go up, they can go down, like they can take the fight anywhere, and it's going to be exciting. And yeah, but also there's just a different evolution of how striking's happening right now, it seems like. He looked fluid.
Yeah, no, he looked, and he always had. Rewatched the Mike Brown fight, which is Stephen Thompson's only loss. Matt Brown. Mm-hmm. So he looked really good in that fight as well. The difference was Matt Brown kept taking the punches and being fine, kind of ducking away from them. And then he ended up the first, I believe, and the third round on top. Bloodied up Thompson. Striking definitely went to Thompson. Ground and pound went to Matt Brown. And Matt Brown ended the fight in a really terrible looking crucifix that Thompson couldn't get out of. And so I thought it was going to go very similar. And then it went the exact opposite.
Because, I mean, Johnny kind of has like it's pretty much Roy Nelson. It's that overhand right kind of power shot,
The duck down, swing over.
I mean, he's got more, I think, to his game than that.
Now, did you see, I was watching a breakdown of it, and there's actually one fight where he lands an overhand right where he swings a jab. The guy goes to block it. He swings with his left, knocks the hand away, the defending hand away, and comes over with the overhand right. Johnny Hendricks.
Yeah, and that's I think he has more to his game than the other. But I mean, that's kind of the dimensions that we're talking about as far as the kind of striking we're looking at, right? And so he had a perfect game plan for it. That the karate kick it's also kind of like a taekwondo kick where it's off your back foot that just kept him at distance. Mm-hmm. Like that thing was solid.
That straight kick to his midsection, you could tell he did not like that. No. Every time he did that straight kick right to his midsection, Johnny Hendricks was not happy that he was getting kicked right in the liver.
But that kick was almost like a jab though. You can't throw it as often, but it kept him at distance.
But I would say it's much stronger than the jab. I understand it is like a jab where it's pacing and it's keeping distance, and you're definitely making sure you know exactly how far that person is. But I mean, so much harder.
Well, and you're protected from the overhand right too.
Yep.
You're not getting knocked out by that.
And it's so extended as well that you can't grab the leg and swing the overhand. So if you look at 135ers, if you throw a kick, a straight kick, usually a side kick, they're going to grab your leg with the left especially, and they're going to come overhand with the right. And because it's a front kick that he extends, they can't get close to him. So it was a beautiful fight.
He did very, and people were talking about like now that Hendricks is off the juice and stuff like that, which I really thought was unfair.
He was chubby. He wasn't ripped. We're not talking.
I thought he looked great.
We're not talking Yoel Romero with like traps up to his ears. We're talking like he came in looking a little pudgy, almost like Shogun Rua, where Shogun just comes in looking a little pudgy.
Well, that's the thing is like he looked more like he was on the juice in this fight. Like he looked a lot healthier, you know.
He did.
And that's Dolce, you know. That's what he does. And I just think it's the wrong game plan. He maybe spent too much time getting his weight under control. I think he's in a healthier place now. And I don't think this is it's a setback for him, but I don't think he's in a bad place going forward.
I think he was in a good place mentally for the first time in a long time. And I think what happened is he underestimated Thompson's takedown defense. He had one shot to take him down, got him against the fence twice, but had one really good shot to take him down. Mm-hmm. Thompson got right back up. And I think when that happened, he couldn't really close the distance again. There was one other time Thompson got pushed against the cage and he rolled out of it, and that was it. I mean, he couldn't get him close enough the rest of the time. And that's kind of what we figured with, you know, what Rumble would have to do with Ryan Bader, but it didn't go that way. And the fact that Stephen Thompson got up, and even in the Matt Brown fight, he showed great scrambling skills on the ground out of the highlights that we watched. But what happened is he just got tired, and then he got in that crucifix and he couldn't do anything about it. And so next conversation is, do you believe that he deserves a title shot over Woodley and over all of these other guys?
No, I would actually like to see we have somebody in VCast. Hendricks focused too much.
Hey, Eddie, what's going on?
And not enough on training. Legit just watched the fight this morning on a replay. Me too, Eddie. That's what I was thinking, is I actually think he's in a healthy place going forward with that weight cut, and that now going forward he'll be able to focus more on training now that he's healthier in his eating habits, mixing it up with Dolce. But addressing who you were going to say something.
The next title shot. So that division is probably the deepest right now in the UFC.
No. 155 is.
Yeah, 155. Sorry, 170. So there's big talks. You got obviously Robbie Lawler, the champion, Stephen Thompson, Johnny Hendricks, Woodley.
I would like to see, to answer your question, I would like to see Woodley versus Lawler, and then I would like to see Condit versus Thompson. I think that'd be a fun fight. Condit versus Thompson, I think would be, more just from a fan standpoint.
Yeah.
Not so much like who deserves it or whatnot. I just think it would be a fun fight to watch. He's been working, I don't know if you heard this, but he has his own movement coach. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but
I heard his interview on, what was it, Ariel Helwani, that he talks about it?
I was listening to Joe Rogan, Experience. So he's going over a lot of the movement stuff as well. And kind of just getting that.
He shows the same movement guy as Conor McGregor, doesn't he?
No.
Oh, no, he doesn't?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you for knowing that.
Yeah. The guy, I believe, is of a Hispanic nature, and I believe Connor's is Portuguese.
Aaron there you go.
Yeah, thank you. No, you are.
Erwin Lecore.
Yeah, you are 100% right on that.
Yeah, Eddie. That's correct, Eddie. Eddie just told us. He sent it to us. We're going to start using him as our fact checker. Yeah. He also has his own podcast. Eddie, what's your podcast again? Shoot it to us, and we'll plug it on for you for being on and listening to us and sending us all the information. But yeah, Crossbones MMA. Eddie's awesome. We always have conversations with him on Twitter. Elaw31 on Twitter. He's a good dude. Very knowledgeable, probably more knowledgeable than we are. So Crossbones MMA, he's definitely fact checking us and helping us out right now. So check him out as well. But yeah,
the Connor one is Ito Portal.
Yep.
And but yeah, Erwin was very interesting. I actually didn't really like the interview, but I think it's going to be good for Connor. But just like I said, overall, from that standpoint, that's a fun fight.
Yeah.
And then I think we get the Tyrone Woodley, Robbie Lawler discussion, figured out one way or another. And then Thompson. I think Thompson needs one more fight.
And I agree. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think what happens is the UFC takes the momentum that Thompson has going in. They realize that he's a striker and Robbie Lawler's a brawler. And Tyrone Woodley, most likely, even though he's good with his hands, he's not as technical as either. So he would have to, what I would think, depend on his wrestling. Digressing from that, obviously, Hendricks is a top-notch wrestler, and he didn't wrestle with Robbie Lawler, which is interesting. But I think Thompson jumped straight to the top of the pack. And because it's a striker-on-striker brawl, Condit just lost, even though Condit probably shouldn't have lost. There's a lot of people that say he won that decision. I think Thompson jumps straight to the top and gets a title fight because I think it sells, and I think it's a striking match with Robbie Lawler that I think a lot of people are going to be.
Apart from the diehard, though, there are very many people that know about Thompson. I mean, I know that he's like, because there's a lot of Thompsons that he can get confused with, and I know that because I confuse him with a lot of Thompsons a lot of the time, you know. But I mean, the other fight that I want to see Thompson in is Damian Maia. I would say maybe have Condit or Woodley face Robbie Lawler. Maybe that's what I want to see. Rory versus. I don't even know who.
God, that division right
so
now,
good, man. It's so good.
Everyone wants to see. The conversation I had on Twitter this morning, a lot of people see Rory being the only one that can actually beat him.
Robbie? Or
no,
Thompson?
sorry, Rory McDonald is the only one that can beat Thompson.
I think Maia comes in with a game plan.
Well, Maia's a whole different story because he's a BJJ guy. The rest of those dudes are wrestlers or strikers. He's the only. I mean, Condit with his Muay Thai. I mean, Maia's the only one, and I hate to tell you, they're not going to put Robbie Lawler against Damian Maia before.
No, I don't want that. I want Damian Maia versus Thompson. I want that test for him before he goes up for the title.
Okay,
fight.
That's you though. What's the money? What is the UFC? Where do they make their money? Obviously, people want to see him get challenged, but the thing is though we might want to see it, it's just like when we were talking about Conor McGregor. We wanted to see him fight. We wanted to see him fight Frankie Edgar, or we wanted to see him fight Mendez and fight a wrestler to see how his wrestling skills really were.
Mm-hmm.
And the UFC obviously doesn't really want that. So, I mean, it is what it is. And the UFC doesn't want to see somebody that they can make money on lose to a wrestler or a BJJ guy. They don't. They'd much rather have the money fight right off the bat, and then once whoever loses can then fight the BJJ guy.
I know that's kind of what they want, but you can't just always do that. And they know that. They're smart business-wise. Everybody can't fight for the title that's a striker, and pretty much everybody in that division is a striker. They have a wrestling background, yeah, but everybody up until Damian Maia is known for striking.
Mm-hmm. Well, in Damian Maia, the only thing that he's lost is being knocked out by everyone in the top three in that division. I mean, Johnny Hendricks, Nate Marquardt, there are several people that know. Who is the one that has the highlight? Was that Johnny Hendricks that has the highlight right hand within like the first 45 seconds that just dropped Damian Maia? I've got his – oh, no, this is the UFC. But, yeah, no, there's one that someone just dropped Damian Maia within the first like 35 seconds. And the fact is I think back to – I'm jaded because I think back to the Damian Maia Anderson Silva fight where he just laid on his back and wouldn't actually strike with Anderson Silva. Like, he just irritates me as a fighter. He's great. I think he's an awesome person. I think him being, part of the secret police down in Brazil is absolutely amazing.
Nate Marquardt.
It was Nate Marquardt that knocked him out, right?
In 21 seconds.
And
that was
a long time ago.
That was 7 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. But still, I remember watching that live. And it is what it is, and that's when Marquardt was at his prime, and the USADA was not in existence in any way, shape, or form. So, it is what it is. But it's right now, there's so many fights to make it 170 that they are.
I'm really not upset with anybody in the top 8 fighting anybody in the top 8. All the way up to the title. I would not be upset if I saw Thompson versus Robbie Lawler.
Yeah.
It's a good question to have answered. I kind of want Robbie Lawler to fight somebody that, I would love to see him fight Damian Maia because I'm sick of seeing him getting, brutal wars where he needs plastic surgery every time after.
Where's his lips busted? He's got a Chelsea grin.
They're great fights, though. This run is unprecedented in the UFC, the kind of wars that he's having. It's maybe the most exciting time for maybe one fighter as far as, the importance of the fight and, everyone is so much fun to watch. Which card would you not buy if Robbie Lawler was fighting somebody
Damian Maia?
You wouldn't buy that. You wouldn't buy that. I wouldn't buy that.
I would buy it no matter what. But that's the one out of all of these fights within the top. I'd watch him fight Matt Brown. I'd watch him fight Johnny Hendricks again. I'd watch him fight Tyrone Woodley. I'd watch him fight Thompson. Those ones. Damian Maia is the only one that doesn't make me salivate. That doesn't make me oh man, I really want this fight. because it happens in one of two ways. Damian Maia gets knocked out in the first round, or he rides his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu to a decision. And that's not something that excites me. That's not something that excites casual UFC fans. And obviously, the people taking the time to listen to this podcast, you and I, we could sit through that fight and we could appreciate the technique to a point. Obviously, we've rolled a couple of times, but the full-on technique is still above us. But we could appreciate it as fans. And going back 7 years and remembering Nate Marquardt knocking out, Damian Maia, and Damian Maia being good enough and beating everybody and fighting Anderson Silva at 185. Like, we remember that. And so we want to see that. So it is one of those things that
if they're not going to give, if that's really what they want to sell, then they just should cut Maia from the roster. He's too much money. Like, he can go get more money at Bellator probably for sponsorships and stuff like that. And if they're not going to give him those fights, because that's part of MMA.
Oh, Marquardt. Wait,
did I say Marquardt? I meant to say Maia.
Yeah, well, Maia loses, he's gone.
No.
You don't think that they
No, because I don't think that's their plan. I think that I understand that they maybe have a preference, but at the end of the day, you still have to give certain guys shots. I understand, like, their money fights, like they did with Conor and everything, but Maia's putting together good performances. He's got performance of the night against Magny.
Yeah, so I have a quick question, opinion piece. Someone getting a title shot after a loss, like Alexander Gustafsson, in, let's say 155.
Rematch or just a loss to a contender?
You lose a number one contender match, and then that contender fights for the belt, they lose, and then you get that shot. So Gustafsson Rumble, like that one, where Gustafsson ended up getting a title shot.
And he lost to Rumble?
Yeah.
He had the title shot before that, though.
Was it before that?
Yeah. Because he was on his way back up.
He got a title shot off of one loss.
Frankie Edgar did.
Frankie Edgar did against who?
Gray Maynard.
Oh, because you lost to Maynard and then you got the title shot?
And Maynard got injured.
Oh, and then
in that circumstance, I'm totally fine with it. I mean, not in the Frankie Edgar. I mean, it's a number one contender, and you have a close fight, and then the other guy has to drop out. Like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. But I mean, like, in divisions.
Outright, no. Like, if you just lose and the other guy's healthy, no, you don't get a title shot. That's stupid.
I was thinking about this today on my drive over and thinking about Gustafsson, Rumble, Johnson. And I guess, yeah, there would have to be an injury before that. But I think about, even if it was a number one contender fight, say it's a Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo gets knocked out 15 seconds, champion's ready to go. Someone who just lost the number one contender fight that can be ready to fight in 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Why not give them a shot? They were the number one contender. They lost to the other, they were a number two in that division. Why not give him a shot? Why not be like, cool, you had the next shot, you lost to this guy, he just lost, you're up.
There are a lot of factors into it. How did they lose? If it's a knockout,
Decision.
Clearly not 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Decision, that's probably even worse. Like, they're still going through like a lot more war. Did they lose by submission? Yeah.
No, but this is enough time for the guy who won to get a title shot.
Okay.
And the guy that lost to heal up.
And so the guy that is now the title holder, he's ready to go.
Yeah.
Give him the next guy in line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Off of one loss.
It's that. I mean, again, it all depends. If it's somebody like in the 170, do you give it to Johnny Hendricks? Like, say that Johnny Hendricks didn't fight Thompson, and say that Johnny Hendricks just lost to Carlos Condit, but Carlos Condit's not ready to go, and Josh Thompson is up and coming, and Stephen Thompson, and he's the up and comer, because he's ranked higher. I would say give it to the up and comer. I would say more times even the lower ranked fighter coming up on wins is more compelling to me than the higher ranked fighter coming off a loss. I would say, typically speaking, there'd be a very rare circumstance that I would say give it to the guy that just lost.
Which is understandable. I just started to think about it, and I thought about, like, in certain aspects, it kind of makes sense if the number one contender loses and is ready to go, and they need someone for that champion rather than having a 4 and a 5 or a 5 and a 7 fight. Just give them the 1 and 2.
Well, sometimes it's more interesting. The unknown is more interesting than what's known.
Than the guarantee. And we're not talking heavyweight where it's
no, I know. I'm talking like, again, with like a Thompson versus like a Hendricks, like or Rory McDonald just coming off a loss, or Jake Ellenberger when he was on his way down, like him off of a loss. Even though you know what he can do and what they bring to the table, and you necessarily don't what Thompson has because he doesn't have that many fights or somebody like him.
Yeah.
It's more compelling to me, the up-and-coming guy.
Well, you look at Dillashaw, and if they didn't give Dillashaw a chance, he would have never become the champion. Like, you do have to take that chance and let those kids compete. Otherwise, you get the top 4 people, like heavyweight, the top 4 people that compete for the belt no matter what every single time. We go back to a decade ago in the UFC when Anderson Silva was fighting Patrick Cote and Damian Maia, and they didn't know who else to feed him because he'd already beat the entire division. Yeah, it is what it is. All right, so going back to the card.
There's some brutal things on it. The dislocation of the jaw. Did you hear that?
I didn't hear it. I was watching it on silent, but I watched it.
That's the way to watch that one. That sounded, oh my gosh.
At the weigh-ins, getting into this fight, Alex Nicholson actually proposed to his girlfriend.
Good thing he did it the day before.
And that was the big joke on Twitter. Everyone was like, this dude is, good thing he's proposing before just in case he loses this fight.
He can't talk.
And he did. And he says, the pop made me cringe a bit. At least it wasn't his fiance. Yeah. Wow. At least he took the time to get engaged before he got his jaw broken because they're not going to be kissing for a long time. And
I think it was just dislocated. And he said that he tapped because he
it was broken before.
Yeah, he's broken it before, and he doesn't want his jaw wired again, and so he tapped because it was in the rear naked position, but it wasn't a rear naked choke.
No, yeah, it was like a neck crank. Yep.
And so it popped out of place.
Speaking of that, Forrest Griffin talks about that. He's like, no one wants to get punched in the face. Like, no one wants to get knocked out because if you get knocked out, you're not eating solid food for the next 2 to 3 months.
Yeah. He's
like, and as great as those barn burners are where everyone just punches each other, I would much rather actually be able to eat solid foods than go in there in a slugfest and get knocked out or not get knocked out and have a broken jaw. And so it is one of those things, I understand where they're coming from. I've had a busted jaw before, not where it got wired shut, but I've also been kicked in the face hard enough playing indoor soccer that I felt like I broke my jaw. And so I take that back. I have never actually broken my jaw. I don't know where that came from. I've had a dislocated jaw on 2 occasions. One was in a high school scrap for no reason where I got blindsided. And the second one was when I got kicked in the face in a soccer game and I couldn't eat solid foods for about 3 or 4 days.
No, I mean, I love smoothies, but not that much. The other thing that I was going to say, and maybe I'm off base here, but I'm just looking at the guy. He's Russian, right? Surfing off. And it's more of just the Russian invasion that's coming across, which is more than I think the Irish invasion that just because it's like hyped on Conor. I think the Russians is the breakthrough in Europe.
The hard part about the Russians, though, the Russian fighters are either top notch or nothing. Early on in the fight with
what other European country is going to make an impact? They're awful.
Ireland. The Europeans can't wrestle, but getting back in there, you've got Damian Grabowski, who I believe also comes from a Russian background, and I could be wrong, but he got crushed by Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis, who also has knocked out Rosholt. So I mean, it was weird that he was on the prelims. But
tell me about that fight. That's one that I missed.
So Damian tries to shoot on him.
No, I mean the Rosholt fight.
Oh yeah, no, we don't need to talk about that. That's not something that needs even.
Roy was so pissed.
Oh, and he should have been.
Because he just ran the whole time.
He just ran the whole time. I've never seen Roy Nelson try and chase someone down an entire fight before. I've never seen it. Usually, Roy Nelson just stands in front of the guy he's fighting and gets punched for 15 minutes. He chased Rosholt the entire time. Rosholt didn't do anything. Except that fight wasn't as boring as the Josh Berkman KJ Noons fight. That fight was terrible. I think KJ Noons threw a total of 15 punches the entire fight.
That's my pick too.
And it was, poor Berkman, talking about cutting weight. Berkman cut down. He looked like a freaking cancer patient, man. He's bald with his crazy tramp stamp. We love him to death because he's from here in Utah, but he went out there to actually fight. he looked awful. His fighting looked fine. Physically, he looked sickly, extremely sickly. He looked like Christian Bale in The Machinist.
That joke's gonna happen a lot, by the way. Whenever I'm not cool with a weight cut.
And so he chased around KJ Noon's the entire time. KJ Noons threw like 15 punches.
That's stupid.
And KJ Noons, everyone kept bringing up how KJ Noons beat Nick Diaz. And they're like, remember how KJ Noons beat Nick Diaz? Like, what? What happened?
Yeah, that's weird. Which, I mean, these heavyweights are just going to keep solidifying my point, too, on top of that.
Oh, my goodness. But the fact I've never seen a heavyweight run that much, ever. Two big undercard fights that need to be recognized. First and foremost, Ray Borg versus Justin Scroggins. Scroggins looked good, really good, all around. Ray Borg took him down. He got up. He actually dominated. The only reason we're bringing this up is Ray Borg was top 10 in that division. Mm-hmm. Scroggins is a scrapper that was supposed to be coming up. He called for a title fight, but 3-round decision, but he looked solid. So watch out for him. And then, of course, Noad Lahat and Diego Rivas.
That knockout. That sound.
I heard that one. That one I had on full blast, and just the crack from
Eddie,
that.
How was the sound on that one?
Oh man, did you catch that the prelims on that one, Eddie?
That thing was beautiful.
So the issue with this perfectly landing. Yep, exactly. Well, and the thing is he didn't see it. So Eddie says perfectly placed knee. Lahat didn't see it coming. The reason he didn't see it coming is because his takedowns were so dominant in the first round. In his mind, he was thinking, I just have to get this back to the ground. So he telegraphed his takedown 100%. It was completely obvious this dude was gonna shoot, and Rivas read it from step one. Bam! He just
Chilean.
Yep, Chilean kid. Jose Aldo'd him, man, right in the face. So he was actually SOS. He was actually on the Tough Latin America, and I don't know exactly how well he did it. I didn't actually watch it. He was. Eddie's saying he was one-dimensional. Lahat was, and he was. He did dominate though on the ground. I mean, completely. Rivas is definitely going to have to fix his ground game, because if he doesn't fix his ground game, it's definitely going to be exploited. But at least his timing's good. His striking looks great, but his timing to place that knee, the only knee I've seen that was that nice, there's two of them.
Carlos Condit, Dong Jun Kim.
So 3. That one. Jose Aldo, Cub Swanson.
Oh, what about Chad Mendez one?
That one too, so 4. Okay, Jose Aldo's got 2 of those. And then
they don't happen very often. When they happen,
you remember Sandman Irvin?
What one?
Sandman Irvin was the dude that was just chiseled, right? And he was all tatted up. And then he fought back on the Anderson Silva card, I believe, when he fought Damian Maia. Him and this gigantic black fighter come out, and they're both at 185, and he runs out first thing, and freaking Sandman just boom, knees him. First thing, drops him right off the bat. Fights over in the first 35 seconds. Mm-hmm. Just crazy. And these dudes were 185 pounds.
I still think
maybe even 205.
I think my favorite flying knee of all time is the Jose Aldo one, because it was a double flying knee. He hit Cub twice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, with the boom boom.
Yeah. That was ridiculous.
And let's get into one more disappointing fight. Artem Lobov looked absolutely awful. They made fun of him for having T-Rex arms. He's like 12 and 11. Really bad fight, but they were saying that he should drop weight. A lot of people saying he shouldn't be in the UFC, but I mean, it is what it is. He rolls with Conor McGregor. Mickey Gall, Mike Jackson. 2 things about this. Mike Jackson probably shouldn't have been in the ring. However, he performed probably just as well as we would. Probably better. If me and Mike Jackson rolled, he would crush me. I can put that out there right now. Mm-hmm. This dude lost 45 seconds. He went out and continued to do his writing and promoting job. He lost, put on a nice suit coat, and went out and was actually writing about the fights. He knew, and he was good about it. He understood that people were going to talk major crap on him, and he might look bad. He didn't care. He went out. He got a shot in the UFC, which is more than I'll ever get, which is more than most of these writers or these Twitter haters will ever get. And yeah, exactly. Oh man. And most MMA media guys couldn't get down to the 265 to fight in the heavyweights. I mean, obviously you have Ben Folks and you have some of those other dudes that have actually fought and are now writing, but there's so many people that would never step foot in the UFC, Octagon, Bellator, even local fights. Mm-hmm. And yet all they do is talk shit on people that actually go in and tell them that they shouldn't be in the UFC. And it's not, to me, it's not fair.
Well, even the most impressive is that he went and did his other job after.
Oh, yeah.
That's, I mean, because you could take the night off on that. You could not do that. Especially because, like, how many people are going to turn interviewer on you at that point? Like, oh, how about your fight? You want to talk about mine? It's like, I get it, man. I'm here. I'm trying to do my job, which I didn't know that story. That's super interesting.
Yeah, no. So Mickey Gall, the other thing that was super funny about that, Mickey Gall wins. Feed me CM Punk. Feed me CM Punk. CM Punk comes in.
Okay.
Yeah. He looked like
that was the most amicable stare down ever.
Yeah. Well, and apparently CM Punk
has like a history in promotion because that's all the WWE is. What the hell?
I have two ideas on that. Number one is Mickey Gall has enough respect, but he's trying to pitch the fight. And the funny part is CM Punk actually asked him.
It was really loud last night. It'll go down.
Yeah. CM Punk, if you guys can hear the TV in the background, that's
not. You can't hear it. It was just really loud from last night.
Cool. So the thing about this is CM Punk actually asked him, "Are you having fun?" And Mickey Gall was like, "Yeah, man." He said, "Enjoy it." So a lot of people said psychologically CM Punk looked weak. I think what's happening is he understands that there's a really good chance and possibility that he loses this fight, and he's not going to promote it like a wrestler, because if he does that and he loses, people will jump all over him. If he doesn't say a word, he goes out there, he fights, and he wins, then he can start to promote his fights however he wants.
Okay. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm just so not. I mean, I'm not so against him fighting in the UFC. I'm not so against that like everybody else is. I'm just not interested in it at all.
I enjoy it. I think it's fun. I think it's great for the sport. Gets into, he's creating jobs, like he said in his post.
Oh no, absolutely.
And he just got 2 other people paid, and I like that they see it like that. Whether people think he should be there or not, he's bringing eyes to the sport. And a lot of people converted over from the WCW, WWF days to start really watching UFC and MMA in general. So if you get more of those people, and those guys are diehards, those wrestling fans, they go out to the events, they fly out to WrestleMania, they buy all of the shirts and the merchandise, and those are the fans. As terrible as they are, as complaining.
In the UFC because it's all the same.
Yeah.
There's somebody else's name on it. It's not unique at all.
But as much as those
we talked about it
last week. But as much as these people complain that wrestling fans are some of the most diehard and dedicated you can get, and it's a good thing for the UFC if they get some of those more of those WWE fans over. It'll be good for them for sure. And so,
I mean, like I said, I'm fine with it but I'm just not interested in the.
Speaking about feeding,
what about it?
Did you see Conor McGregor fight awards
speech? I didn't actually part of the transcript.
I watched the speech. One of the best things I saw on Twitter afterwards was the Power Rangers, the blue guy, Zorg.
Yeah, Zordon.
People put him in the Zordon beam.
That's so
hotline bling. But times where he just seemed like he's completely coked out, where he just seems kind of crazy. I think he was driving, and in this particular situation, I believe he was driving, and he was trying to be clever and smart and talk crap at the same time that he was driving his car, which takes a lot of effort. But there's 2 things there's one really important thing that I liked that he said, is that he's feeding fighters. That he's out there, he's training, so he can feed those fighters. And I think one of the conversations I always have with my brother Sean is that he's going to be one of the fighters that helps unionize the rest of the fighters, and they're going to get a fighters union because he'll be big enough to do whatever he wants and get fighters.
Does he want a union?
He wants to get paid as much as humanly possible. And that's really what he's going for, is getting paid as much as humanly possible. And a union is going to help. If he makes $1 million, the UFC themselves are making $2 to $3 million. If he makes $7 million, they're making more than that. The UFC made $600 million last year, and the fighters are making pennies, compared to that. And going off of that, I listened to an interview with Rumble on MMA Roasted. Not my favorite podcast, but they do a good job. He talked about they brought up a union, and he said, I think every fighter thinks about unionizing. It's just getting everyone together to actually do it.
Well, and you don't want to make enemies with the Fertitta brothers and Dana, and you don't want to be that guy if you don't have the right clout to go up against them and make them mad.
Yeah,
I mean, but at this point, I think they have to unionize. I mean, I know that Dana says that that's not what they want to do, obviously, and that they would really need to look at it. But, I mean, did you see what happened with Bellator? Did you see the Bellator payout?
Oh, it was awful. I did actually see the Bellator.
That's terrible. I mean, they're maybe getting more in sponsorships, not the lower guys, man.
No, because they're not on TV. But they are getting, I mean, sponsorships mean a lot. And I think a lot of people forget that. I mean,
Jordan get paid for his, like on a local?
On a local card, and I don't know if this is correct, and I need him to actually confirm this. So we'll get into two things. We'll get into the Bellator card after this because my cousin actually fought and that's who Henderson Bendo will be fighting. But two things. On the local cards, he could make up to $5,000 just to show up if he was the main card. Mm-hmm. That is high. That's on the high end. Plus, he would make sponsorship money. I never talked to him about the sponsorship money.
No, I mean it's none of our business.
No,
it was like more anecdotal. Like I feel like they're not making as much as, because that's the big thing right now. And I'm on board. People are making more money in Bellator. Yes. But you have to be on television.
I would like to talk to him now that he's out of fighting, about how much he made on Bellator fighting Koschev, because they wanted local guys. They fed him to Koschev. They talked about Koschev being a terribly dirty fighter, which is interesting to me. But I would like to see. I'm guessing because I'm guessing he probably got paid $2,000, $2,500 to show up. But the hard part is you have 10% for management. Usually the gym's going to keep a percentage because you're not paying to go in and train. You have to buy all of the gear and stuff to go in unless it's provided to you. And then, you might get some local sponsors that are going to give you $2,000 to $3,000. So as a local fighter going in on a local show, if you make $5,000.
Well, he was headlining too. They might have paid him, well, not on the Bellator one, but the local, they pay him more because, like, if you're a local guy, you have to pay him more if you're headlining. But I'm just wondering on those Bellator cards. And like I said, I wouldn't necessarily be like, hey, Jordan, how much you get paid, man?
But you got to think, this was almost a decade ago now. Think about it. Mm-hmm. Maybe not quite a decade. It's 7 years ago maybe when this all happened. So you got to think how much they were paid.
Wasn't though. That was Ryan.
Chelsea and I have been married, so it's 4 years ago.
I was going to say, because that was Emmanuel Newton knocking out Kingo. Yeah. It was.
But that's still 4 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
So
lots changed.
And the fact is I guarantee you they paid. That was before Viacom or right at the Viacom buy.
I think I was right at it.
Yeah, and so
these are the satellite tournaments that were happening.
Yeah. So that's when they actually started to get paid. So before that, they probably didn't. He probably made $2,500 to go fight.
I don't know. But so more about that card though. Sorry, go.
That's it. Just two quick things. OSP defeated Feijao. Feijao, a lot of people are saying after USADA he looked soft. He did look like he could drop a weight. Joe Benavidez, Zach Murkowski. I watched this on silent without looking at Twitter a whole lot. Twitter blew up. Did Joe Benavidez look good and had won that fight? If it would have been a split decision for Benavidez, I would have been all right with it. I agree that Zach did a lot better than everyone was giving him credit for. I think he's a solid fighter for sure. And Benavidez obviously is as good as he is. He didn't have to wrestle, do anything like that, but I think he definitely could have done better. Looked more crisp. He doesn't look like he's going to get a fight at DJ and do anything, better than he did the last two times.
I'm excited about the next DJ fight.
Oh, with that, yeah. How is his last name pronounced? Cejudo?
Cejudo.
He's
Mexican. Well, he's American, but his parents.
Yeah, it's pronounced in a Hispanic.
Cejudo.
Yeah.
But he's a Olympic wrestling gold medalist.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
He won. I think he won NCAA. He won a gold medalist. he's run through everybody so far.
Well, he had a split with Formiga. He had a split decision, so he didn't run through Formiga. But Formiga's.
I didn't see that fight.
Yeah, it's. I'm excited for it. Yes. I'm excited for it. I'm hoping that he gives Demetrius. I want to see him wrestle Demetrius, essentially. Like, I would like to see them go to the ground.
Yeah, no. And I mean, DJ's got good wrestling, but definitely not that high quality of wrestling.
But he's a striker, though, and he chases a lot, too, though. He chases. He comes in hard. He's, like, against Cardiaso, he was throwing hard head kicks and then throwing, like, combos after it. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that matches up because he's a ground guy, but he definitely strikes. He definitely strikes.
So let's talk two quick things then. Let's talk the fight announcements before we get into the next couple cards.
I'm so excited for Khabib versus Ferguson.
All right, so you want to start that? Let's start with that one.
We'll go to the championship.
I don't think Ferguson has a chance.
Oh my gosh, I do.
I also don't like Ferguson.
I know you don't. I don't know why. I love him so much.
Listen to one of his interviews.
I don't care.
Listen to him talk smack on Sage Northcutt on Twitter. Like, the dude's a dick.
I don't care.
Like,
he's an amazing fighter.
He was a jerk to Ramsey when they beat him in the Ultimate Fighter, and Ramsey's our boy here from Utah. Like,
what was he a jerk? What did he say?
He's just a jerk, man.
What do you say?
His trash talk is actual, like, legitimate hate, not like I'm doing this to pump a fight. He's just legitimately a jerk, and I don't remember what he said. I just remember pre-fight.
Remember the last fight that we watched though, and he was nothing but a sweetheart in his interview.
And then I don't know what happens after. I gained a little bit of respect, and then I listened to the Ariel Helwani interview, and I was like, this guy, man. And then I watched his Twitter rant about Sage Northcutt losing, and I was like, what is going on? Like, this is ridiculous. I like him as a fighter. I think he's a great fighter. His personality rubs me the wrong way.
And every interview that I've heard, and maybe we're listening to two different sides of it, because I don't really remember anything of him being like super rude or anything like that. I am really excited to see that fight though.
Go back 2 weeks ago to the MMA Hour or whatever it was, 3 weeks ago, and listen to his interview with Ariel Helwani. Interestingly enough, he also is managed by Paradigm. They're his PR company. Mm-hmm. He's also on with Conor McGregor. So it's interesting that I think he might be trying to goad it a little bit more.
But the funny thing is he hasn't gone after Conor at all, right?
Oh, no, and he won't.
He goes after everybody. I would be surprised if he eventually doesn't.
If he beats Khabib, I think he does. I think he wants to fight with McGregor, whether RDA wins or not.
You got to make some noise in that division too, though. I don't understand the Sage Northcutt thing, but you have in that division you do have to make some noise if you eventually want to get a title shot. Yeah. And you have to. The other thing with that division is it's twofold. You've got to make noise, but you also have to put performances behind it. The division's too good. And
you probably shouldn't get in a fight outside of the ring like Khabib and the freaking Diaz brothers.
Do it!
Oh, man. I like it. I hate it, but I like it. I like that they're passionate enough to get in fights outside of the ring, but I also think it's really dumb that they're dumb enough to actually get in fights outside of the ring. The Diaz brothers, man, I love them to death, but I hate them to death. The fact that they got in a fight on Strikeforce, on CBS, and they're kicking freaking Mayhem Miller when he was down, he deserved it. It's nuts. I didn't deserve it. No one deserves to get kicked when they're down by a pack of Diaz's. But the fact is Mayhem Miller was is crazy. And then, of course, they got in a fight. Apparently, I mean, it's not as bad as like the boxing brawls where someone gets shot or like chairs get thrown and people get sued yet. But the Diaz brothers, I mean, they've definitely got Twitter. They've got videos and stuff that show that kind of stuff. So it's definitely interesting.
So what are some of the other ones that they made?
But who wins?
Oh.
Who wins, Tony Ferguson, Khabib?
I actually haven't seen Khabib a lot.
Khabib, I don't know.
Nurmagomedov, right?
Yeah. Nurmagomedov. Great pronunciation, by the way.
Yeah, ask Travis.
Yeah.
I actually didn't. I think I did once, but I don't remember if he wouldn't correct me. He's too nice anyways. But no, yeah. I know. Looking at his history, he's just got win after win after win after win.
The last person to beat RDA.
Yeah, that's the big one that stands out.
I think he's next champ.
I don't believe in Europe at all. I just don't.
He's dominated everybody.
I know. There's something in me. It's just like a block. It's like the Bisping block is the Dan Hardy block. Like I'm not buying into it. The Conor McGregor, it's starting to erode at that, but it's going to stop when he loses to RDA. I actually don't know if he's going to. I'm really excited about that. I can't wait to do that preview.
Oh, man. People talking trash and saying Conor's going to lose are crazy.
He's bigger than him.
Yeah, apparently he looks huge.
He is bigger than him, man.
He looks like they took a picture with him and Gunnar Nelson, and him and Gunnar Nelson looked like they were pretty close to each other.
Well, with that whole talking head interview thing that he did at the MMA Awards, I was wondering if he was trying to now tell that he's going to go up to fight at heavyweight since he's going to fight at every other weight. He's all the way to 170. I was wondering if he skipped 185 and light heavyweight and just going right for the heavyweights. Anyways, I would
bring in a payday for those fighters.
Yeah. I'll take. I'm gonna go Ferguson.
And I'll take Khabib, which is awesome. Other fights announced: Hua versus Rashad Evans. Rashad, sorry. I almost said Rashad Jackson. I was like, no, that's not the Shogun Hua versus Rashad Evans.
Both coming off losses, right?
Neither of them have looked good as of late.
I mean, apart from names, I'm not super excited about this. I think that Rashad turns it around and gets back in the win column again. I think the last fight was ring rust. I think he comes back, in my opinion.
Is there anything? Does it mean anything to the 205 division? No. Winner get anything?
No. I think
who wins?
Rashad.
I can agree with that. All right, Tisha Torres, Namajunas. Tisha Torres won last time.
I'm going to go with Rose.
Rose looks pretty good.
She lost the hair. She's got Pat Barry in her corner.
She looked good when she beat up on Paige Van Zandt.
I really like
Tisha Torres crushed her.
Take on that in the last fight that they
had.
I'm going to take Rose. Because
I would take Rose too. I like Tisha Torres. She seems like a sweetheart.
I don't know much about her.
She seems really, really nice. You know what? I just hope that they bring more attention to the women's MMA fights. I think the women's MMA is definitely stepping up. I think that
we talked about
Miesha Tate versus Holly Holmes is going to be a better fight than Holmes versus Rousey, but I guess we'll definitely see.
Well, and like I was saying, like the women, I'm more, and I don't mean to always talk crap on the heavyweights, but just to show how much I just don't like them, except for the top, obviously. But the women fights, and again, it comes off as sexist, and I apologize about that, but are more compelling than the heavyweights. Like, I'm more interested in those. And I don't mean it to be a slight. I mean it to say, like, how much I think they're doing for the UFC right now. They could headline cards and pay-per-views and pull more money in than the heavyweights. And traditionally, heavyweights for boxing, for MMA, I mean, the biggest draws in both of those sports have been heavyweights, right? Except for Manny Pacquiao and Money Mayweather. But other than that, I mean, the history, it's always the heavyweights pulling in the money.
Yep.
And so, again, not a slight to women, but I'm way more interested in their storylines and what they're doing than what the heavyweights are doing right now.
So what about, so the next one that I forgot about that I'm not necessarily concerned about, Lyoto Machida, Dan Henderson.
I like it.
Why?
I don't know. I like both of them as fighters.
Does it do anything for the 205 division?
No.
It's almost like a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Hua, Evans, Machida, Henderson.
It's fanfare at this point. It's essentially it's a smaller degree what we're watching at Bellator next week.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm more excited about that because they're still actually fighting. I think of all of them, Machida probably has the biggest chance of starting to make another run. He just doesn't really take damage, and he's still.
Why did he fall off?
Machida?
Did the competition just get that much better that quickly? The Weidmans, Rockholds.
I mean, who's he? I mean, he only lost to.
He's only lost to the best. But But remember how they used to call it the Machida era, and he was going to crush everybody for a long period of time, and then it ended and it was done. He lost to Hua the second time, and since then he hasn't really been as dominant ever again.
I don't know. The problem with him is he doesn't put his output's not high enough to like take decision wins. He has to be knocking people out.
He lost to Rampage.
Did he?
Yeah.
Ooh.
By decision.
Well, I mean that's the thing. He doesn't put out enough. Like
if he doesn't knock him out, there's a good chance of it going to decision.
But I think he put Dan Henderson to sleep, and I think Dan Henderson's pretty much done.
I love Dan Henderson to death. He reminds me of one of my good buddies, the Wilsons. Looks like they come from the same family. But he definitely needs to retire. Dude still looks better than me. I mean, at 50 years old, he's still in better shape than I'll be in my entire life. But but his fighting career. The hard part is at 205. 205 is a rough division, man. There's not a ton of people that really are drawing anybody in. And so it's really, really hard to get that there and make sure that they have new fighters. And that's what someone talked about with the Misha Sirkunov and, the fight on the last card yesterday with the jaw issue. People want new 205ers. They need people in that division, And Nicholson didn't look too good. Sirkunov looked good enough, but they're not good enough to compete with the top 10. Not yet. But 205 is definitely getting more and more shallow as people get older. So it's definitely rough. What else we got on the docket over there?
One of the MMA awards, I shout out to Holly. I kind of felt bad for Joanna because, I mean, if it wasn't for that last fight that Holly had, Joanna's the clear pick for, I think, newcomer and probably woman fighter of the year. She took more fights than Ronda, and she was super dominant. And she actually might not have won just because of Ronda's name, but I think that she kind of deserved it. I think Joanna is going to be champion for a while. And so I was just wondering your thoughts on that and just the other awards.
I think the MMA awards are a fake award show.
As all of these are, but
I didn't watch them. Well, obviously they weren't live. I watched a little bit on Twitter. It seemed like it was a whole bunch of MMA writers stroking their own egos. It's very interesting to see them taking pictures of people and to see just how nerdy the MMA writers are as compared to the fighters, and yet how much better they think that they are. We had this conversation by text, how much better they think they are than the fans because they're writers. But really how a lot of, there's very few MMA writers that get any respect from the actual fighters. So it's definitely a tier system. The writers think that they're better than the casual fan or even the hardcore fan. And then you have the fighters who think that the MMA writers are junk to a point. I mean, it's like watching Joe Rogan who trains all the time with actual fighters and then being like, Joe Rogan doesn't know what he's talking about. And Joe Rogan, for me, knows way more than I know. But watching with actual fighters and then being like, Joe Rogan doesn't know what he's talking about. And so I think MMA writers, I think they need to get off of their high horses.
Part of the text conversation was that they only go to their fans when they want to insult them or when they need something. That's kind of what their fans go to them for.
When they want to prove their dominance.
Well, but it's the same thing. Like the fans, like it's just. That's
the fans are the worst.
That's the thing. It's just a relationship. Like I wouldn't recommend it for my own career, but I don't hold it against anybody for. Going in just to be petty and say something out of the fans, that is stupid. But as far as only when they need something from them, like that's what social media is for. You use it. It's very seldomly used just to communicate. It's usually like, oh, I want to get recognized, so I'm going to send LeBron a tweet, or I'm going to send Conor a tweet. Like it's just stupid stuff like that. So I'm not too worried about that in that aspect of the.
But they're not. They're not recognized. I mean, actual like intelligent questions that are asked, like, hey, you just tweeted this out. I have a response, not a hey, you suck, or hey, I read your last article and I don't like you. I mean, the legitimate like. Cool, you think that you just tweeted out that so-and-so is getting the next whatever it is. Like, perfect example, Ariel Helwani, who I really, really like, won Journalist of the Year, and every single person that told him congratulations, he sent them a thank you. Probably automated cut and paste thank you. He still did it. He still did it. And that means the world to a lot of people because of who he is.
I watched his interview with Katie Nolan, who I have huge crushes on right now. But
I didn't see that.
She's on FS1. She has Garbage Time. But it was really interesting to see his backstory. He actually didn't get into MMA because he was an MMA fan. He got into it as an opportunity because he's like, I can either dress myself up and look good and go and just because he was trying to go into like the other sports realms.
Well, because he interned at HBO Sports.
Well, it was even before that. Like he was at a number of different places. He's been to, I think Spike, which he hated. He's been to HBO Sports. He's been at a ton of different places. And then one day he had just decided that this MMA thing was going to be his bag and kind of went forward with it. But then, to his credit, he became very educated on it. He does better interviews than I think I've seen anybody. More meaningful interviews. They're not like inflammatory, but it's like
he can ask whatever he wants, and the fighters know that he's not attacking them personally.
Well, it's like, think about, like, when have you ever seen something as just candid as like the John Jones interview where they just went on that walk?
Yeah,
I mean, they occasionally have like big shows like that where they'll do a tell-all after the fact, but this was during. That's the kind of respect he has. Like, John Jones knows that he's not gonna like mistreat him or anything like that. He's gonna ask him questions and he's gonna have to answer. But
knowing how to tactfully ask a fighter how they feel about a loss, knowing that they feel terrible about it, but being able to phrase it in a way of actually getting them to actually speak, not on the loss, but their own emotional involvement in that loss, is really difficult to do. And he understands where he stands in the sport, and he doesn't pick favorites. Like, you have to pick one winner, one loser, and there's only 50-50 in MMA. But you watch a lot of other people like me talking about Tony Ferguson. It's like, I just don't like that guy. And I think a lot of fighters listen to a lot of interviews and podcasts more than a lot of people think they do, and they know who talks shit on them and who doesn't, and who treats it, even if they think they're going to lose, isn't a huge jerk about the entire situation. Those fighters know, and MMA writers say that they've been called out, when they meet them, like, oh yeah, you're nice to my face, but I've read your articles that, where you point out the holes in my game. And coming and being on a podcast, like, there's a different conversation that I'd have with you and I watching fights, or, watching an undercard and be like, these dudes suck. But the thing is we're not out there. We don't train. We don't do any of this.
I want to again. I think I'm going to start back. I think I'm going to quit soccer.
I figured we'd start actually doing, like, taking a camera in and going in the gyms and doing some things. It's just so expensive.
Well, if we go to my work, they have mirrors, so you don't even need the camera. I mean, you can, but
no, I don't mean for us to film us doing it. I mean, like, hey, we're at Jeremy Horn's gym in downtown Salt Lake. Hey, Jeremy, here's this. Let's talk about your career. Now let's roll a little bit at your gym. Hey, Aldo, in one hit, and whatever it is, and actually go in and do an actual gym feature.
That.
Yeah, and eventually we'll get a website and do all of those things. Right now, I don't think that we need one, but we'll get there. It is what it is. But yeah, no, it's definitely something that I would like to end up doing. And we've got Jeremy Horn, Court McGee, Ramsey, Steven Seiler, who's fighting for the Titan FC belt. We've got some fun people, and then getting in with the local fights and actually broadcasting live and different things like that.
Gustavo would be dope. 5th degree black belt. Aldo. Aldo wants to. He would love it.
Any publicity. He'd get his chubby little daughter in there. I wonder if she's still chubby. We haven't seen her for 2 years.
I know, man. It's been longer than that for me, I think. I think it's been 3 because I've almost lived here, in this situation for 3 years.
Yeah. No, yeah.
The other ones I was just going to ask you about, the other title fights, they finally got the John Jones.
Oh, yeah. Announced yesterday. You want to know when they announced that?
It was in the middle of 2 fights, wasn't it?
Because they were so boring. It was the Berkman KJ News. They were like, all right, no one's watching. Let's give them something to talk about during this fight.
The other one thing, I'm sorry, I was going to ask you about the card. How was the Pike fight? Because it took... Pike. It took
Mike Pyle. Mike Pyle.
Oh, I mixed the 2 names. Pike.
And Sean Spencer.
When I said Mike with it, I was like, Mike Pike, that doesn't make sense.
Speaking of names, he actually, Sean Spencer looked like he was going to win that fight for the first round. Midway through the second round, he looked like he was losing steam, and Mike Pyle was doing his thing. I like Mike Pyle. I think he reminds me of Mike Brown, who was just a fighter. He ended up spinning elbow. It looked like it missed, but it grazed the top of his head, knocked him wobbly enough that he had to put one hand down. And then Mike Pyle's got a killer instinct. One of the things I really like about him, put him against the cage, got him in a Muay Thai clinch, and just started kneeing him. Boom, boom, boom. Well, maybe not even Muay Thai, a loose Muay Thai. And finished it with knees. And it looked like Sean Spencer at the beginning was gonna win it by decision, and he came back and showed his heart. And like he said, what did he say? Nifty 50, looky who's 50 or something like that after, or looky who's 40 or some clever line afterwards. That was pretty funny. Once again, I watched it on silent. I actually like watching fights on silent because I can get a really good read of things rather than listening to the announcers say who they think's winning.
Yeah.
But
I've done that with like other sports to kind of just like so I'm not going off somebody else's opinion. I want to see like if I recognize the movements or the different intricacies, which I typically don't. I turn it back on and go listen to it. I don't. I mean, I
think we do to a point. I think things are so quick. Watching the Benavidez fight,
I was talking more with other sports, but
yeah. I thought it was in fast motion, the Benavidez fight. It was just so quick.
I mean, that's the thing with the 125, 135ers. They move so fast. It's hard to catch what they do, and that's why I think it's weird when they're always like they're technically better than everybody else. Like when they talk about technique, I don't think they are.
No,
like they just move faster. Like it's just different. Like they don't. That's why pound for pound doesn't make any sense. It's like you can't in MMA with a cage. You really can't keep a 135 or a 125 on the ground. Like that technique just doesn't exist like it does with other.
They're mobile. Well, and you have to center balance and different things that are so different in that way, where it's easier to pop in and out because you have less weight, less fulcrum of your actual midsection to move forward and back. Like there's just a whole bunch of different things. But let's get talking about Bellator again.
Yeah.
Lieben getting signed to Bellator. What do you think about that? Chris, the crippler, Lieben.
This is the problem.
Why?
Because I think he's turned it around. Like he's been off drugs. He's been clean. He's been sober. I don't think Bellator is the best avenue for him to go for that. So we'll see, though. We'll see how he's been doing. But I mean, he doesn't have any regulation right now on him. Like he could be doing drugs if he wanted to. But
he can't even have a drop of alcohol, or his parole officer puts him back in jail. There's an interview with him and Chael Sonnen, I believe it was. So I mean, I've always liked him. He's had a rough life. He's always seemed like a really pleasant guy. Would want to run into him in a back alley if I didn't know who he was, because just a scary looking dude.
He's just. I mean, do you not want him to fight anymore?
No, I think he's fighting because he needs money. He just got a divorce. His wife's taking all of his stuff. He used all of his money on drugs, and it is his job, and good for him for going out and getting back in fighting shape. Like, great for him. He's doing his job. I'm not totally sold on it. I think Bellator is reaching. When he had a lifetime contract with the UFC, and they were like, nope, we'll cut you loose. You can go to Bellator if you want. There's definitely a lot more going on. I mean, Dana White used to pay for his rehab. They've taken really good care of him, and for them to be like, you know what, we're cutting ties, like we're done. There's a reason.
But I mean, we don't know them. Like,
no, I don't mean like he's doing something silly or like spousal abuse. I don't mean that. I mean,
like they couldn't come to terms, but they still want him to get paid.
It could be the same Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell, Forrest Griffin. Like, hey man, you're done. We're not going to pay you to come in here and die in the ring or get brain damage or we like you enough to tell you that you need to be done, and we will not pay you to fight in our ring because you need to be done. And that's what I think it is. I think Dana White's a lot better with some fighters than others, and I think he's a lot better than some people give him credit for being a human being when it comes to certain people with issues. And I think Chris Lieben's one of those people that they've been there for a long time. Matt Mitrione brought it up. They took care of him step for step with his eye. Like, they had someone there with him in the hospital, like the UFC representative. So there is a human side of the UFC a lot of people don't see because of the pay. But I mean, the UFC is not just Dana White and the Fertittas. There's a whole organization underneath them that's there for everything else. So I'd rather see him never fight again. But if he needs money, let him do his thing.
I mean, what else is he gonna do for money, man? Like,
he could probably sell the drugs he was buying originally.
He's done with that.
I made someone really mad on Twitter because he sent out memes that were just mean-spirited. It actually had Chris Lieben doing his crippler point, and it said, signed with Bellator to feed my drug habit, which is funny, but at the same time, the dude really does have a drug habit, and why should somebody who think he'd send them all to MMA roasted?
You just made the same joke. You just said that he could
I didn't make the joke. Mine was more. Oh no, I did.
I'm just saying.
No, but and a part of it came from that. But he got real mad because I went meh. That's all I responded with was meh. And he was not happy. He actually dropped three different F words, I think. F you effing.
To you?
Yep. To our Twitter account
for just putting meh.
Yep. And then I memed him again after that comment. after he not only tried to insult me and use.
This was genius. How dare you? Yeah. You know how long I spent on this meme? I had to find a picture.
I met
download
again.
A program.
Yeah.
How dare you?
And that's what I don't like about MMA fans. The fact that there's a gigantic discussion, and then we had the discussion of whether Miesha Tate had a boob job or not, or attractive fighters getting bigger paydays and different things like that. MMA fans need to move on past that and a lot of the women's fighting aspects of things. But I mean, it's a men's thing. I had a conversation with one of the guys on Twitter about how clean our podcast is, and it's just really funny that it's just one of those things.
Did he not like how clean it was? I mean, we'll
no, it was fine. But I mean, a lot of like the MMA roasted they're pretty foul, and it's fine. I mean, it's fine. That's funny, but it's not something I want to talk about the sport and the technique of the sport and some of the pop culture around the sport, but I don't want to talk about did Miesha Tate get a boob job? Like,
oh, okay. I think it meant more like F words and stuff like that.
No, I don't mean that.
At some point.
Yeah, no, I will eventually cuss. It's not one of those things. My mom will probably be listening. I'm not a rap star making millions of dollars off of profanity. So,
yeah. But no, yeah, I didn't know that was a thing that they were discussing. Like, I guess they want us to be TMZ or they want TMZ. I don't understand.
Oh no. That's not something we were discussing. It was just funny because he was talking about how foul he was as a person and how unfoul that we were, and it wasn't a big deal. He just thought it was funny.
No, we're just on here. We're fake.
No, I'm a pretty clean person. One of the things you're also not as foul as a lot of these MMA fans. I mean, people in general can get pretty bad, and it's not my style.
I love it.
Even the fighter and the kid sometimes I'm like, all right, guys, we don't need to talk about weird, the B to the D to the D to the B.
And I'm like, let's talk about it. Tell me about it, Brian Callen.
Yeah.
You're hilarious.
Tell me about all of the girls you used to run through when you were up-and-coming comedian.
What I want to hear about.
That's why we tune in.
That's what I'm in for.
So tell me about this.
If we happen to get to fighting, that'd be cool. But if not, whatever.
Tell me about the fighter refusing the knockout. I haven't seen this yet.
Oh my god!
I saw it, but I didn't actually watch it.
Chris Cyborg sent it out.
Yeah.
So he gets knocked out. The ref calls it off, pins him like up against the cage, and then he just like no, and the ref even like gets into position to like raise his hand, and then just was like the guy was like no. And so the ref just like backs up. The other guy squares up, and they just keep going. They just kept going. He's like, the best clip. I'm gonna pull it up.
He's like, give me my standing 10 count. We'll have to watch it after. We got 8 to 10 minutes or so more. So let's talk Bellator this weekend's card. Not that we're really that focused on it. Melvin Guillard is making his Bellator debut against Melvin. Derek Campos.
I love it.
Melvin, the star that never was. Great fighter, great kid. Reminds me of Nico Stallworth, which is also a sad story. But I think he wins. I hope he gets back on track. I hope he does well. Emmanuel Sanchez, Daniel Pineda. We're not going to get into it. I'm not super familiar with it. So let's get Emmanuel Newton versus Linton Vassell. Two light heavyweight guys that have both challenged for the belt. That were both in the competition. Vassell lost his fight, I believe, to Phil Davis. Emmanuel Newton got all the way up and lost his fight as well to Phil Davis. Who do you think wins it, Vassell or Newton? We've seen Newton live. I like his fight style.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I like Newton. I'll go for him. Just cause that spinning back fist on King Mo was dope. That whole card, but we saw a lot of knockouts that night.
Yeah, no, that was a solid card. The undercard was terrible, lots of decisions, but then the top card was a lot of
fighter versus the heavyweight one, where he just stood like this, like he was riding a bike for the whole fight. Yeah, and he didn't move.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
That was I think
I think one of them was a local.
Well, he was, and that was part of it. Is he came in late, like he hadn't been training for that fight. So I mean, I don't know who he is. He probably will never listen to this and won't even remember that we're actually talking about him. So
yeah,
I don't mean because he got hit. I just mean because
I think every Samoan that listens to this podcast, which is probably
they're going to all think I'm talking about
them, are going to be really mad at you. Hey, I'm Samoan and train MMA. He must be talking about me.
I was in a local Bellator card in Utah, but no. I'll go with the name of it. Just going back on to answer the question at hand.
Kimbo Slice versus Dada 5000. The king of the street fight.
Kimbo.
I think Kimbo gets knocked out only because he's like 55 now.
Yeah.
And Dada's got that sledgehammer. And as far as I know, they're going to let him bring it in. Yeah.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't do that.
He could go to jail for that.
Just go back and watch that fight from Kimbo. The
Which
backyard brawl.
Oh man, I haven't watched those for about a decade.
Go back and watch them.
And we should.
Real great.
We should go back to the Dada bare knuckle boxing fights too. I wouldn't watch bare knuckle boxing.
Why?
I don't know. There's just
if MMA did went away with gloves, you wouldn't watch?
Why? I just don't. It seems.
What?
Seems. I don't know. Psychologically, it seems more like a street fight.
You're on the wrong side of this.
I am 100%, and I understand. I can feel that I'm incorrect.
The gloves make it worse
because you don't break your hand as quickly.
Yeah.
Well,
one, it locks your wrist into place, so you can hit with a much larger surface. So if you hit on these two knuckles, you're most likely going to break your wrist, where it locks into place. Two, you got more dexterity with like doing holds and stuff like that. The ground game would be more compelling to me. But then also, it just makes it so you don't break your knuckles in general. Like your hand, your knuckles, you can throw more. I think it's better for the sport if they didn't have the gloves.
But there would be much more broken hands, though. That's the other hard part. Oh. Which would end fights more quickly. I mean, think about Uriah Faber and how many times he's broken his hands in fights.
They'd adapt. I mean,
they definitely would have to adapt.
Crews where they just get injured easier. They're obviously gonna
have
risk,
issues.
But the people would have to adapt. That's why I think it'd be better for the sport, like as far as concussion concerns and all that business. I
never thought about the actual technical aspects of how it locks your wrist in. I never actually got into that. Where did you watch that? Where did you read that?
I don't remember. I mean, it definitely wasn't or originated in my head.
Oh no, I know. But
I don't remember exactly.
You knew too much to be just making it up. That's why I knew that you were.
I have actually thought about this a lot too, and because I've had to explain it to people at work that are just. I remember I was at a work lunch that we were doing for Christmas just about 2 months ago now, and they were asking each other because you're supposed to get to know everybody, like what are you into? And I was like, oh, I'm really excited for the card because somebody mentioned that they were married to an Irish guy. I was like, are you watching the card this weekend? Or coming up versus Jose Aldo versus Conor McGregor. Why would you watch it? Blah, 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 blah. And then they got into talking also about football and the helmets and things like that. And so, I mean, there's a few things that I've thought of on my own, but I don't remember where that exact thought came from.
Interesting.
Or who told me about it.
So
probably Joe Rogan something.
So you got Kimbo, I got Dada.
And then we got Gracie. We got Hoist.
Hoist Gracie versus Ken Shamrock.
We got Hoist.
Hoist Gracie.
Hoist's going to win.
You think? Is he wearing the gi? Is he going to come out in the gi?
He'll come out in it.
Remember when he fought?
Wear it.
Do you remember when he fought Matt Hughes? He got crushed. 100% annihilated by Matt Hughes.
Matt Hughes was in his prime.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah.
It was post Matt Hughes prime.
Nah.
And I don't know why they did it. Ken Shamrock. Like I said, I would like to turn this fight off after the Emmanuel Newton, or this card off after the Emmanuel Newton battle. Because I don't care about Kimbo Slice and Dada 5000. They can fight on the street and film it and put it on YouTube. And I don't care about Ken Shamrock, Hoist Gracie. I do for what they've done for the sport, the pioneers that they were. I don't because they need to be done. They just need to be done. I don't think either of these guys need money. I think Hoist Gracie's probably pretty well off. Ken Shamrock might not be. But I don't like it. I don't like this fight.
Great.
I think Ken Shamrock wins.
We're all on the opposite of all of it again, which means that you're going to be right about all of them.
No, we agreed on Emmanuel Newton.
Yeah,
we got that one.
Yeah, that's just more because I saw him and I like him. He was nice. He had his gimmick, his little mosh pit gimmick, which I love mosh pits.
No, he listens to hardcore music and goes to hardcore
playing
shows.
It up as a gimmick, like that's the thing. He gets
because he's soft spoken and nice and
No, I know that he's actually into that stuff because that's what the music he came out to, but it's a gimmick.
All right.
It's letting people know a part of yourself, which I'm all for.
Mm-hmm.
Do it. Do your thing.
So 2 things. Super Bowl pick.
My last podcast that I just did that
Poor Sport Report.
Poor Sport Report at Poor Sport Cast. I said that I think the Broncos are going to win, but I want Carolina to win.
I want Cam Newton to win.
Yeah. I thought you wouldn't because I thought you just didn't like those kinds of people.
Nope. I want 100%.
By those kinds of people, I mean hockey.
That's actually part of the reason I want him to win because there's an ESPN article that my brother actually sent me that says that Cam Newton says people don't like him based on race. I didn't believe it, even though I definitely believe that there's still a race issue here in the United States, which is a whole different conversation. But then I watched Twitter where they pulled people that were talking smack on him that were all old white guys and all of the people that were defending him, which were all young black women. And it was a pretty good indication.
We get both those dynamics off Twitter.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that both of those shouldn't be on Twitter. But the thing is, and I thought that was very interesting because the conversation was that there isn't as much of a race issue as they would like to believe that there is. But then you watch Ramsey Nijum saying that when he's in Sacramento, people call him by the N-word and he's Pakistani. Like, it exists. I want the Carolina Panthers to win.
If you can't watch Ken Shamrock versus Hoist Gracie, I just can't imagine that you'd be okay with Peyton Manning's bionic self walking out to face a young kid.
I'm also from Utah, and everything Denver is our antithesis.
Yeah, I hate them. Well, if we don't have the sport, they do, and then they have everything that we have. Mm-hmm. But we usually win if we've got better history.
I was a Rockies fan as a kid.
And I was a Rocky in Little League, so that's like the only team I'm cool with.
I was a Cub in Little League.
That and Denver University, the Pioneers. Kellen.
See, I was watching the Negro Baseball League. Oh. The Clowns and the Buffaloes. And
no, Kellen played for them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he did. DSU.
Yeah, him and...
and his older brother. Yeah, no, it is what it is. And then predictions for Alistair Overeem. Do we hear back this week whether he stays with the UFC or goes to Bellator?
He's going to Bellator, man.
He's going to Bellator? You heard the rumor and everything here first. If he goes, we were right. We're going to say, hey, we were right. You should listen to our podcast.
If I was wrong, it's on me.
And if we were wrong, then it was a rumor and we didn't know either way.
Or if we're wrong, then it's again just me being wrong. Like I've pretty much been on every pick that I've done on this show.
Hey, it's all right.
No, it's fine. It's just that we're just setting a precedent going forward. You're right. I'm wrong.
Yeah,
okay, I'm okay with that.
It's like my marriage. I'm right about everything. My wife's great, but she's usually wrong.
We're the same person, so that's
that makes sense. Yeah. Karson is the male version of my wife. That's why we get along.
She's the female version of me. I existed first.
Yeah, that's true.
In your life and in real life.
Except we can prove where she comes from, and we can't prove where you came from.
I have a mother. There was a sperm donor somewhere. That's the only thing we can't prove.
That's true. I hope that we get some kind of shot in at your dad every podcast.
I hope he hears it one day. And by dad, you mean sperm donor.
Yeah, I mean, we mean sperm donor. All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning into One Speed MMA. We got quite the crowd over there, as well as a lot of noise going on in the background. But
the dog is standing on Paul's head.
Rod, you get down. You got down.
Thanks for listening, though, guys. We appreciate it.
Remember, don't give 30%. Always go One Speed. Bye. Bye.
We appreciate it.